Hi, this is Susan Moore with IIBA, and it's Wednesday, January 19th, and this is Business Analysis Live.
I'm Scott Bennett. I'm the manager of business analysis here at IIBA.
All right, well, today we've got a really hot topic because it is that time of year where people are thinking about careers, they're thinking about what they're going to do in 2022. So, we're going to talk about getting ready for your professional development.
Yeah, this is a perfect time of year for that. As a manager of teams, often talking to people at this time of year about setting your goals for the next 12 months. What is it you want to do? And I think, professional development goals can be a little bit tricky because it's not black and white. What do you look at? What do you want to do? As we start this conversation, one thing that I'll remind you of, if you experienced at the end of last year, you forgot about your development goal and you're trying to cram it in there, I encourage you to think about planning some time in your calendar, just maybe once a month, reminder to look at your professional development goal. Because oftentimes we get busy in what we're doing, and it's something we can forget. And it's an investment in yourself. So make sure it's a priority for you.
I talk with a lot of new members who one of their primary goals when they join IIBA is developing their career. Just making the investment in an IIBA membership actually is, for many of them, that is part of their professional development goals. What I
Yeah.
like to talk with them about is what we've got for them to be able to think about where they are with their career development, and then give them some tools to have a structured way of doing that. Because at the end of the day, I know that professional development is on every manager's roadmap of yearly things they have to do, but really every person should be accountable for their own development.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when people think professional development, they typically think courses.
Mhm.
Um, but you and I, Susan, talked about before this. I think we've got a few more ideas other than just the traditional, hey, what course can I go on? Right.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Let's maybe frame this conversation in our career action guide, because what when I talk with new members about that guide, I try to get them to think about where can you go to get whatever those resources or tools are. So IIBA members, when you join, part of the tools and resources that you've got access to is the career action guide. It's a 5-step plan. um, I like to say it's basically applying business analysis to your own career. That's really what this is.
That's a good way to
Um,
describe it.
yeah, and I want to demystify this a little bit. And so if we say it's business analysis for yourself, I think it makes more sense. So these are the 5 steps that are in that plan. Um, Understanding. So this career action guide is built on top of our business analysis competency model, and that covers not just the knowledge areas and underlying competencies of business analysis, but it also gives you the ranges and the levels within them, right? Because just knowing how to do business analysis planning, for example, there's multiple levels in that development. It's not just one thing. Um, from there, the next step is then to do your own current state assessment. And so we've got a self-assessment tool out there where you can subjectively, right, take a look at the knowledge areas and underlying competencies, and then apply where you think you are. And that gives you a good set of scores and ranges where you are, so that you can understand kind of where you are in that. And on the plan one, Scott, I know that you've been talking a lot in some of our recent talks about putting that plan together. I'll let you cover this one.
Yeah. The plan and evaluate kind of go together. The evaluate I love. I went through it for the first time about a year and a half ago, and it's like a quiz. You're flipping through a magazine, you see a quiz. Oh, let's fill it out. Well, this is a business analysis quiz, and it allows you to go through and answer all these questions, and then it scores you. So you can figure out based on the knowledge areas of our profession where you're stronger and weaker. The plan is the next step on that, obviously. But it's one of those things that requires judgment. So I went through, and for me particular, my weakest skill is on strategic analysis. But in my given role and what I do day to day, that's not really a significant portion of what I do. and doesn't really have a high uh, contribution, I guess, to my performance. So even though it's the lowest, I decided not to invest there and invest in other areas. So on that planning, as you go through and evaluate that, I'd encourage you to share the results with your manager. Sit down with them and say, hey, I went through this. This is how it came out. What are your thoughts? And have a good, healthy discussion around where do you want to invest. Sometimes investing in the weakest is not your best return on investment. Sometimes investing in the strongest is a better option.
That's a really great point, because and I sometimes think that we believe as business analysis professionals that we've got to be at that thought leader, top, top skill for every one of those knowledge areas, but it may not be right for you. In talking with your manager or a peer, you can start to look across the organization and either identify projects or opportunities where if you could grow those skills, you could move into that role, or if you could further develop those skills, you could fill a gap. So, thinking broadly about that planning, and something else, and this is what Scott and I were talking about earlier, sometimes when you're thinking about your career goals, think also about personal goals. Scott and I both have come from we've developed interest outside of work in areas around content management. You're a YouTuber. I know sometimes we talk about that. I've done stuff with blogging and email marketing. Building skills outside of work, you can bring those into your job as well, in ways maybe that you didn't anticipate.
Yeah, and I do want to encourage all the viewers. This really is an interactive session. The reason we do these live sessions is so we can take your questions. So don't hesitate, put a question in the box there. We'll get to those as we're going through. Um, so yeah, Susan, in terms of broad things, what can you do? The stuff in your personal life really does play into business analysis. It could be anywhere from developing EQ, being able
Mhm.
to read and understand people you use every day in your personal life. That's a skill that you can grow and mature because it will help you in the business analysis role. Because ultimately, our game is a game of human beings, right?
That's right.
You need to communicate with someone, you need to understand them. So EQ is one of those things. But yeah, special interests can also help.
Yeah,
Different skills that you pick up, different volunteering that you do for other organizations. You could learn a leadership skill that you might not have access to do at work. So picking up a leadership skill, then you can bring that into the work environment. So yeah, so in terms of career development, it's not just what course can I go on?
that's
It's
right.
what are those skills that you want to build beyond that?
One of my very favorite stories, and I was thinking about it this morning as we were getting ready. So about 10 years ago, there was a plane of commercial airliner that landed in the Hudson River, and miraculously, the plane didn't break apart. There was no loss of life.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah. And when we found out more about that pilot, it just so happened that outside of work, he flew gliders. He really enjoyed that and had done a number of water landings with his glider. So that as they were trying to figure out how to get back to the airport and realizing that that wasn't going to be an option for him, he was able to bring this interest and experience with gliding into it. And that's never been done successfully. So that I think is a great example of how things that you do outside of work, if you build those skills, you can find ways of using them. They really change your perspective. So I think on the planning side, like go big on that. And definitely as you're getting to that next step, which is acting, it may not just be about the courses and things. And our IIBA members have a lot of access to chapter events, great ways to learn and meet people. Many of our chapters have mentoring programs so that you can mentor or be mentored. We have an online library with over 11,000 books. You're right. It's not just about taking another course. It's integrating different ways of learning as part of your professional development.
Yeah, and back when I was doing career planning back in the 90s when I was first doing business analysis, it used to be the individual owns the development plan. And I think that's changed a little bit in some ways. Um, when I talk to other managers about doing management of business analysis professionals, I encourage them to really be an active part of the conversation. So don't just leave it to the individual. So the manager for you can be a great resource. So don't think that you should work in a bubble here. Get a few ideas together and sit down with your manager and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And they can give you some different opportunities in terms of maybe some learning, but the experience side is where your manager can help you out. So we learn by doing. It starts when we're infants. We watch, we learn, we do. That's how we are as human beings. So if you want to get experience in a certain area, the richest learning environment for someone in our profession would be working with someone who's more experienced.
Mhm.
So if you want to learn facilitation skills, get partnered up with someone who's really strong at that, or maybe observe one of their sessions and then have a chat with them afterwards. So again, think outside the box, have your manager help you get you onto projects you want to be on, and help you with partnering up with people that are more experienced so you can watch and learn.
I think that's a really great point. It looks like we do have a question. Let's see. Um, so the question here is it normal to not have to use every knowledge area when working on a project or initiative? I think that is kind of normal. Yeah, that is pretty normal. It could just depend on the project, where you're positioned as the business analyst on that project. So I think that is typical. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so as well. Typically, those that are new to the profession of business analysis are working at eliciting requirements and documenting those. So uh, that's really the bread and butter what we do. And then as you get more experienced in your career, you start to branch out more into the other knowledge areas. So yes, absolutely, I agree. You don't need to use all of them in one
Yeah.
project.
And I think having an awareness that those other knowledge areas exist, in the same way that the pilot was able to bring these gliding skills into landing that plane in the river, I think just having an awareness that those other things exist. So potentially you can watch somebody do that, and start to build up some awareness and some skills in that area. So, yeah, let's see. So here's another question. Is there a possibility to be a member or working voluntarily for more than one chapter? Um, I I think that you can most definitely volunteer with IIBA in a number of ways. So chapters do have a lot of different volunteer opportunities, both for leadership, for event planning, things like that. But then even within IIBA, we've got volunteer opportunities. We've got a volunteer database where you can sign up. It's under Get Involved on our website. And we've got things like translation opportunities that are going on, and then just expressing a general interest. You can even submit articles. We're going through those now and building out an editorial committee so that we can start to publish those. So yeah, listen, volunteer as many ways as you want. So the next step in there, I think, was to act. And that's where you're pulling together how you're going to proceed. And we didn't talk about prioritizing, or maybe we did sort of talk about prioritizing. You can't do everything all at once. Um,
Right.
so as you're thinking about how you want to develop, it's important to know what you want to develop first. And then, you know, then acting on that. And, I've mentioned some ways that some tools and resources that you've got available through IIBA, but there's a number of other ways that you can grow. Volunteering is a way. We have relationships with a number of endorsed education providers out there and academic institutions. If you do want the education component, we've got lots of relationships, and you can find those out on our website as well. I don't know what else to say about acting here.
Uh, I guess going back to what I started with is make sure you set aside time for this. I had someone that reported to me a couple years ago that was firing all cylinders, but they forgot their career development goal and didn't achieve that goal on their scorecard. And it was unfortunate because they had done so well everywhere else. I hope other people don't experience that, but it just reinforced to me that we do need to pay attention to it, because it could get set aside. So maybe it's, a Tuesday morning, you block off an hour on your calendar and you focus on something. Maybe it's once a month, but don't don't fire and forget, because it'll catch up with you at the end of the year.
I think of professional development kind of like, weight loss goals, right? And so I think one, being accountable to somebody, whether you've got to stand on the scales or talk to a coach or whatever. But then things come up, life comes up, work happens, priorities change, projects change, that something has changed shouldn't deter you from continuing on that professional development. You may have to tweak some things. And honestly, for me, sometimes that is the OKR. That something has changed and you've responded to it, even if it wasn't, well, I achieved that thing on the date that I said I would. By that date, I realized that wasn't as important, or I needed to break it down a little bit further. So,
Right.
so create those check-in points, which is really the review step, is what you're talking about. And I think being accountable to somebody, your manager, a peer, a mentor, I think really can keep you on the path to your career development.
Yeah,
Now,
I've actually got another suggestion I just thought about.
mhm,
For those of you who are members and haven't gone into the online library yet, there's actually a function within there that you can add things to your learning plan, and you can use the system to send you email reminders. So if you find an 8-page summary of a book that you want to spend a couple of hours on, you can put that in, set a reminder. There's audiobooks in there as well. So a great resource if you haven't checked that out, and it's free to all members.
that's a great point, because it reminds me once a month that I'm delayed on one of my goals. But I think that's a great point. If you want to build in that accountability, that tool actually does that for you. Okay, so we've got a couple of more questions here. First question: I'm not a business analyst or a project manager. I play a role in strategy and operations at my company, and
Okay.
I'm confused between developing learning and certificates development plan for myself. Maybe it's a certification development plan for myself, or if I should just learn more about project management or business analysis. So I'm going to interpret this question to mean, should I focus on learning and certification, or should I just learn more about the particular profession? I would say it's probably maybe a little bit about both. My sense is, if you're considering one or the other, I think that they are different enough in scope and focus. It's worth it to understand those disciplines a little bit more, project management or business analysis, and figure
Sure.
out which of those you're more interested in. Because if you're going to develop a learning plan or a certification plan, you really want to know that you're interested in doing that thing. What do you think about that?
I'm going to give you my biased opinion of
Okay.
project management versus business analysis and why I chose business analysis. So I did go through project management training, have gone through a full week course on that, and have done some project management. And honestly, I'm good at project management, but it doesn't fill up my tank.
Mhm.
The idea of planning out the work is great, but the following up and the monitoring, to me, I find that a draining experience. Some people really enjoy that. So that's where I figured out business analysis was better for me. I also love to learn, which business analysis professionals typically love to learn. So that's where I made that split. If you are looking at learning business analysis on your own, it can be a little bit challenging to use different resources that might or might not be available on the internet. One thing I would recommend, and this is a biased solution, I'll just say that right up front, is the entry certificate to business analysis. This is a certification that you get that you can demonstrate to employer, hey, I have this knowledge. And what it's based around is the body of knowledge for business analysis. And you will, by the time you've got the certification, understand the profession. That's really the purpose of it. So if you are looking at business analysis, that's a way I would suggest to go. It's a great win at the end to have a certificate, something very tangible that you can have saying, I understand the global industry as a profession.
I think we've talked a little bit about that project management business analysis divide. I too was going down the path of project management because I was working in a PMO, and part of the PMO director was, if you're here, you have to get a PMP. And it was very clear as I was going through that boot camp that I really did love business analysis. And so I think that's just, I do think that's step one, is you've got to figure out which path, because both of them, the learning and the development and the certification process, they are both an investment in time, resources, and money. So figure out which one you like. It also makes developing yourself, I think, much easier when you're learning something you enjoy.
Yeah, for sure.
So the next one here, let's see, what avenues can I use to improve my ability to inspire collaboration and conversation?
Okay, so to me, the way I hear that question is a facilitation question. So if you're facilitating conversations, whether it's one-on-one on a Zoom session or it's a group of people, collaboration and conversation, you might end up having a group, let's just say it's 5 people, and you ask, hey, does anybody have anything you want to talk about? Silence. We dread that from happening, right? What are your thoughts on this? Silence. The way you start to engage people and get them to open up is you start asking people questions. Hey, Susan, what are your thoughts on this? They're going to respond. Then move on to someone else. Hey, what are your thoughts on this? So when you're dealing with facilitation and you're getting that lack of collaboration, lack of conversation, um, calling people out in a kind, comfortable way in terms of, hey, what are your thoughts? Or um, open-ended questions, questions that they can't just answer yes or no, and then the conversation stops, and open-ended questions. Um, that's what I would suggest. I'm not sure if that answers the question. If not, please add a little bit more to the question, and we'll see if we can get to it.
I'm going to quote Ryland Layton. I was in his BA master class last week, and his suggestion was 2 words: get visual. Well, he's 3 words: get visual quick. I do
Okay.
think bringing something in, bringing a picture, a draft of a document, something that people can react and respond to is a great way to inspire collaboration, either with people discussing it or people interacting with it, since so many of these tools have collaboration components and shared ownership components to them. I think that can be a way to get them to react to something. That's been my experience
I
in
can get
trying to
your
get.
reaction to my new deck of cards.
Oh my gosh, he's my hero.
So
Happy
joke gift.
accidents, he would say. Happy accidents.
That's right.
Let's see. All right, so we're going to keep on going. Can I switch between various chapters and attend PDM, which I think are professional development day sessions conducted by different chapters? Absolutely. In fact, when you become a member, we automatically find the closest chapter to you and we associate with you in that chapter. That's just for kind of a home base purpose. But you can, and really, we want you to branch out, experience different chapters all over the world, go to their professional development days, participate in their events. I think it's amazing how business analysis is both different and the same all over the world. So, absolutely, that's part of your membership. You're really part of every chapter. So, take advantage of that. It's a great benefit.
Yep.
All right, next question. Where does one begin in terms of certification? I'm currently doing a BA course through a local university. Ooh, this is a good one, especially for today. Um, I think that step one is to figure out which of those certifications would be best for you. And here at IIBA, we've got 7. So there's 3 core certifications and 4 specialized certifications. Scott's already mentioned the ECBA, which is the entry-level certificate program. It just requires, if you're doing a university program, it may give you the PDUs that you need, but you can take that. The CCBA, which is the capability in business analysis, and what we call the CBAP, the business analysis professional certification, those have a work component to them in addition to education hours. So if you don't have the work experience yet, those might not be the right ones for you. But on the specialization side, those don't have a work component. And those might be correct for you if you're looking for specialized knowledge. So we've got the Agile Analysis certification, and I'm a holder of that one. We've got a Product Ownership Analysis certification. We've also got a Cybersecurity Analysis. And then, Scott, I'll let you talk about the last one.
The CBDA in data analytics. So that's one that I'm involved in. I've got that certification, and we're actually doing a webinar next Wednesday to reveal some research that IIBA has done about how business analysis can really up the game in the data analytics space. So yeah,
Yeah.
and on the specializations, I just a word of caution. If you don't have the base foundation of business analysis, I wouldn't go to a specialization, because those specializations assume you have that knowledge already. So it might sound attractive to go to cybersecurity analysis, but if you don't have that base foundation of business analysis, you're going to really struggle with that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because it's not as if there are prerequisites for taking those, meaning you don't have to have an ECBA in order to take those specialized ones, but you really do need to understand business analysis skills. So if you're a member, you can download the BABOK. There's also the core guide as well. That's like the short version of it that can give you a good background. But again, a good working knowledge of business analysis will help you in those specializations. All right. So let's see. I don't see any more questions out here. These are pretty good today. It looks like we've got people thinking about what they're going to be doing with their development this year. Um, any final thoughts?
No, I think the key really is just communicate about it. If the manager that you're working with for some reason isn't all that helpful, seek out one of your peers. Maybe someone that you look up to in the business analysis space, and get their feedback on it. Just make sure that you're not doing it in isolation. Get some feedback from others, I think will help.
Yeah. And again, that career action guide, if you don't have a manager, or maybe you don't have a manager that is skilled in business analysis or understands that discipline, that can be a great tool that you can use to have those conversations and put a framework around it. I'm going to do one last check for questions. Looks like we've got one more. So let's just make this one the last question. If I've worked for 3 years in data analysis and more years in operations and leading short projects, can I study and apply for the CCBA, or do I have to go through the ECBA? I have overall work experience for 10 years. So our certifications don't require you to go to have one, to get one before you can go to the next one. It really is about identifying where you've got the experience and the skill. I've seen some planning tools out there because they are looking for experience in the knowledge areas. So it is, I think, 7,500 hours for CBAP, and I can't remember for CCBA, which is the one this person is interested in. It is less for that. I don't remember the numbers of hours, but you'll want to use a planning tool, because you'll need to have a certain amount of hours in each of those knowledge areas.
Yeah, and to look into the CBAP or even the ECBA, we do have a handbook for each of those on our website. So if you go to the handbook, it lays out an overview of how it all works and comes together. So whether it's work experience or different knowledge areas, you'll find that very helpful.
Yeah, great point about the handbook. That really has the answers to a lot of the questions around requirements and education and the scheduling process. So definitely grab that handbook for the core certifications.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and we'll leave another one right here for you to help you in your business analysis career. If you haven't subscribed to the IIBA YouTube channel yet, you can click over here and click on the bell icon to get notified every time we publish a brand new video.